Okay, the first step in the process of formatting a book, if we look at our checklist, you will see that it says review Word document. Make sure seam breaks are marked with a character as opposed to a blank line. If there are any block quotes or text messages, mark them with format and in format just so you can search for them later when you import them in. So we're going to take a look. This is a real world example. This is a client of mine that I am formatting her book. So the first thing I do is I just look through her document and note that she has a foreword. So we need that in the front matter. She has a dedication. She has a playlist. And then she has a blurb and then a quote. So all of this will be the front matter. Then she has a prologue, and then chapter 1. I just like to look through to get familiar with how their documents are set up. And then I just kind of scroll through to see if I make sure that all seam breaks are noted. They are noted with an asterisk. Chapter 3. I don't do a lot of cleanup in the Word document. I actually save that for InDesign because there's a lot of scripts that can be run to save time. So I just scroll through. I look for things like text messages, maybe sections that are set off in some sort of block quote. Not all documents have them. And if it's your document, you know where you have those areas. But when working with clients, we don't always know where those areas are. So it's important to look through the document that you're working on to be familiar with it. So I'm going to pause here and finish looking through. And if I notice anything odd that I need to pay special attention to, I will come back to it and show it to you. Okay, here is one area. It wasn't necessarily set off in a block quote, but she did have it italics. And sometimes these will pick my attention. And basically, she's looking through a book and a passage caught her eye and she nearly stopped. And so she has this in italics. So I like these areas like this to be set in a block quote. So I'm just going to make a note to myself so I know that I can set this in a block quote. And the reason why I'm noting this here is because as we're formatting, we necessarily don't read every single page. And so if we can make notes of those special areas, that way we don't lose them as we're formatting. Otherwise, this would just get formatted as a regular chapter text, and I actually want this to look offset. So I'm going to continue searching, and I'll let you know if I come across anything else. Whether you're the author or a formatter, it's important to know how clients have done their ellipses. This one right here is set with non-breaking spaces, which is actually the CMOS, Chicago Manual of Style way to do them. And I will typically change the way these are done. I will typically do a hairline space followed by a true ellipses and then another hairline space. However, if a client has actually set them up in Chicago Manual Style way, I will do that because that means I know they prefer Chicago Manual of Style. Now, I typically follow Chicago Manual of Style for everything, but I'm not a fan with the way they recommend setting ellipses. I think they look too spaced out, and so I prefer to do them differently. However, for the ebook, we will need to convert these to no space, a true ellipses, and then a space after. Otherwise, you're going to have an ellipse at the beginning of a line. So you want to anchor it to the word before by not having a space. Also, pay attention if they use proper em dashes. This is correct. But sometimes some authors will just do a dash space or space dash space, and those may not necessarily get picked up in our scripts that we run. So those are things a formatter should definitely check for. Okay, I come across some text messages, and typically I may set these as, I may add my little format, and I will in this case. But in some cases, if there are a lot of text messages, you may not want to set them all to say format. You can actually search in your document for colons. Colons are something that authors don't use too much, so there's probably aren't a ton throughout the document. And so you'll be able to find the text messages very easily. So I'm not going to worry about setting this as a format because I will be able to find them. Okay, I have completed looking through her document, and there's not too much that we need to be concerned about. There's nothing that we really need to do in the Word document. So at this point, what I do is I save the file and I add import before the file name, and then I'll close it. It's important that you close it because InDesign will not import the Word document when it's opened. So step one, all right, is complete. We've reviewed the Word document and we've made note of any special areas that we need to be concerned about. So step two is in the InDesign template, go to the main text frame on page 1, which is page 5 of the actual template. Be sure to be in the text frame and place the Word document. Okay, so here is page 1, C1 at the bottom, where it's also the 5th page in the InDesign template. So to place your manuscript, just to access this text box, there's a couple of ways to do it. All right, it's important that you have your toolbar up. If your toolbar is not up, you can go to Window, Tools, and this toolbar will come up. It's important. I like to have mine anchored, so you can kind of move it around until it snaps in place. So I like to have mine anchored over here. There's not too many things you need to worry about on this toolbar. The ones that I prefer to keep accessible are the eyedropper tool. Sometimes I'll draw text frames and uh, rectangles and things of that nature, so I'll use these. I don't use the pencil and the pen tool that often in InDesign, and I don't for books, and I don't use the line tool that often for books. I will use these in Photoshop and Illustrator, but for books, because we want continuous threaded text frames because it makes it easier to convert books into ebooks, I don't typically use these a lot. Now, if you were using InDesign for something like a magazine or a brochure design, you might use these options a bit more, but for books, we typically stick with text frames. All right, so the only main ones that I will use this black selection tool. So this selects anything and moves it around, and then the text tool. So to get into a text frame, there's a couple ways to do it. You can double click and it will go into the text frame, or you can just hit the T key or select your type tool and then click in the text frame and it'll get you there. So now I just quickly deleted that text. And what I'm going to do now that I'm in this text frame, now this is very important, okay? If you try to place the text anywhere outside of this text frame, your document will not flow properly. So make sure you are in this master text frame. So go ahead and delete that text out, stay in the text frame, and we are going to place, which is File, Place, but I like to use the shortcut key, which is Control D. Okay, and then you are going to go to the document that you have prepared. See, import. We are going to click on OK. Now, if this is the first time doing this, be sure to go ahead and check Show Import Options. Now, mine was not initially checked because I've already had my settings saved, and so I don't ever go into the Show Import Options, but since this is the first time we're doing it together, I'm going to show you this page. You do not have to use this every time. I just recommend doing it the first time you import any document just to make sure the settings are there. Once you get the settings there, they will be saved and you won't have to redo them. So we're going to click on open and this box is going to come up. So if you don't check that button, this box will not come up. All right, it is taking a minute. Okay, so for this, you just need to make sure certain things are checked. If you don't have to worry about table of contents. There isn't a table of contents in this document anyway, but I just keep it checked. Index text, this is if you have a nonfiction book and you actually used index markers in Word. You definitely want this checked if you want those index markers to come out, but for simple novel, you don't really have to worry about it. Same with footnotes and endnotes. If you have a document with footnotes and endnotes, primarily for nonfiction books, you will definitely want those to be checked. Always, always, always use typographer quotes. Those are the curly quotes that actually hug text as opposed to straight quotes that go up and down. The next thing you need to make sure is that preserve styles and formatting from text and tables is selected. Do not ever use this because what's going to happen if you have any italics set in your document, they will be removed. So you definitely want to preserve styles and formatting from text and tables. Import inline graphics. If your document has any graphics, you definitely want to add those in. Never import use styles. Don't import track changes and don't ever convert bullets and numbers to text. And typically that is only for nonfiction books as well. Manual page breaks I never pay attention to. You can actually preserve page breaks if you want. It doesn't really matter because we're going to have our page breaks set up within our style definitions. And then I actually always tell it to import styles automatically. If you have a document that was styled well, then you may want to map styles to our predefined InDesign styles that we have set up in the template, but I never do that because it's just time consuming and I can easily do that in the paragraph styles menu and I'm going to show you how to do that. And if you are a formatter, the majority of your documents are not going to be pre-styled. I have done thousands and thousands of book designs and probably less than 10 in all those thousands have I done did the author use styles properly. So it's a pipe dream for them to use styles properly. So now that we have everything set, we're going to click on OK, and then InDesign is going to import our document. All right, now InDesign has brought in our our document, has placed our document into the InDesign file. And you will notice we went from that 6 pages in our document to 482. By placing the document in the master text frame, you will notice that our manuscript is now threaded all the way to the end. And you will see our back matter page was pushed to the end and our document is all there. So first step, before you absolutely do anything, the first step after you place your document, well, what is it? Let's go to our little handy dandy checklist and see. Important, run Preptex Script, okay? And then check to make sure the script worked by looking for italics within the document and making sure they are set to the italic character style. If they are, then the script worked. If not, don't move forward until you get the script to work. All right, so under scripts, this is where the Preptex script is. However, it doesn't come preloaded with InDesign. You will need to download it. If you are in our Building Books group, you will have a link to where you can download this Preptex script. It is an essential script and you definitely want to have it. It is from Jongware, Jongware. You can actually do a Google search for it just by typing in Jongware Preptex Script. And what it does, I will tell you what it does. I see this right here. This is an italic, okay? And you'll see this cyan color. This is very common. This just means that if we go into our print preview, you see the cyan goes away. It's only in the screen preview. And this is just InDesign telling us that this particular text, it doesn't fall the definition it doesn't follow the definition of the paragraph style we set up. So in the end, all of these cyan colors are pretty much going to go away except in certain situations that we will discuss later. So you can actually clear this by just right clicking and say clear overrides. But I want you to pay attention to the italic text. We clear overrides, my italics is gone. I need that to be italics. That's important. That is a newspaper that needs to be in italics. And if we scroll through our document, again, here, the truth pact, that's in italics. That is a book title, so it needs to be in italics. But this paragraph right here will be set to the first paragraph style. So I'm going to set it, and then I'm going to clear my overrides, and that italics goes away. We don't want that to happen. So what the Preptex script does is it goes through our document, and anywhere that things such as italics, bolds, subscripts, underlines, things of that nature, things that are called local formatting, it will assign a character style to it. Okay, so the important thing to note is that we have paragraph styles, and a paragraph style is assigned to an entire paragraph, whereas character styles are assigned to single characters or words. So this would be assigned an italics, but currently it isn't. And we would have to manually go through our document to look for those italics and sign them italics because Word sets them in local formatting. However, that's where our Preptex script comes in. So we're going to run it and I'm going to show you what happens. But most importantly, you need to be in your text frame. And don't remove anything out of your master text frame until you have run this script. So we are going to click on actually, let me just undo that. I deleted those paragraph marks. I want to keep those in because I'm going to show you what their next script does. So make sure you're in the master text frame, double click on Preptex, and it's going to run. All right, so now when we hover over USA Today, it's now using italics as the character style. So if we clear the overrides, our italics stays in. If we assign this paragraph to first para, our italics stays intact. So running that Preptex script is essential. It will save you a lot of headache from having to manually set all of your italics, bolds, underlines, or whatnot to a character style. Okay, next, let's look at our handy dandy little checklist. Important, run find change by list script. Now, the beauty of this script is we don't have to be in the text frame. We can be in whatever text frame in the document because this script actually asks us whether we want to run the script on the document, the selected story, or the selection. Okay, so to find the script, it's also under scripts, and you'll go to application and go to samples, Visual Basic Script, and run, or it's actually also in a JavaScript, so you can actually run it from the JavaScript as well. It doesn't really matter. I typically run the JavaScripts, and here it is, find change by list. Now, what this script does is it gets rid of unnecessary spaces. So it'll get rid of all of these paragraph marks. These paragraph marks, we do not want just random empty paragraph marks there, line spaces. We always want to use our space above or space below to set those spaces. So find change by list gets rid of all of those. It also gets rid of double spaces in between. Sometimes we have a habit of hitting two spaces after a period. Those are no longer needed, so this script gets rid of that. It gets rid of spaces after a period and before a paragraph mark. By getting rid of those, it allows us to use certain grep searches to find missing punctuation and missing quotation marks. And then it also gets rid of you may have some blank spaces at the beginning of a paragraph. So this script gets rid of that. It also converts our double dashes into M dashes and a whole lot more. If you ever want to know what all it changes, you can open up this in this folder below the Find Change by List. You can open up the text file by finding the location on your computer of it and then opening up the text file. So here it is. So this shows you what all it replaces. And if you are good with code, you can actually add whatever you want if you need to change it. So it will find double spaces and replace with single spaces, double returns and replace with a single return, all returns by a space and remove the space, double tab characters and replace with single tabs, and then it removes tab characters altogether, and double returns, single returns, space dash space and replaces it with an N dash, and then double dashes it replaces with an M dash. So it's a great little script and saves a lot of time and cleaning and prevents you from having to clean up the document in Word. All right, so now we're ready to run this. So we're going to double click on it. We're going to tell it to run on the whole document. And you will notice some things shifting, and all of those spaces are now gone. Now, one thing it doesn't get rid of, and you will definitely want to search for these, are these what's called manual line breaks. So I am going to just do a search for those, and I want to get rid of those. So we're going to look for those, and you can actually come here in your Find Change menu, and the Find Change menu is Control F, just like everything else. And we are going to look for a forced line break, which is this caret N. And for now, we're going to replace it with a paragraph mark. Change, because we don't want those hard line breaks in there. And actually, I think I can do a change all, and it replaced it 47 times. Then I'm actually going to run this script again, because when I do that, it may get rid of, I may have added additional paragraph marks that are not needed. By running that Find Change by List again, it's going to get rid of those duplicate paragraph marks again. All right, so now that we have run the scripts, let's look at our little checklist and see what's next. Well, I tell you to save the document because this is a good point to save it. Now, my tips on saving documents is make sure you have a naming convention for your documents. I like to differentiate my drafts to my finals. If I name a file final, I know that I can upload it to the printer. So we're in the draft phase right now. So this is what my naming convention is. I usually call it by the book title with an underscore, interior draft with an underscore 01. And so once I finish the first draft, I will go in and save it again, but I will save it as draft 2. So that way I always have backup documents if needed. Now, the key in saving documents as well as graphics, it's a good habit to get into saving them with no spaces. In the world of web design, spaces are our enemy when it comes to saving file names. And guess what? An ebook is basically a web page, a collection of web pages lumped together. So, to prevent problems in creating your ebook, I recommend getting in the habit of saving files without any spaces so they will easily convert into the ebook process. So, what I'm going to do is for this particular client, I'm going to go to her folder and I have to go to my network drive, so sometimes it will take a minute. All right, so if you are a formatter, make sure you have good naming conventions. So for my clients, I have each book has its own folder, and this is for a duet. So this is the book, and then I create a folder and I call it Interior. And then in that folder, I am also going to create a links document, and I save any graphics and such in the links document. And then I save it with our file name, which is going to be the truth packed underscore, instead of space, interior draft underscore 01. And that's how I save the document.